Hello and welcome to another edition of the TimeFlies podcast. I am your host, Dariel, of course. And this episode, I'm going to be breaking down game four of the NBA Finals between the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. So the Dallas Mavericks won game four by the score of 122 to 84. And the only reason why they won is because the energy, the intentionality that they had going into game four, knowing that they did not want to get swept, is one of, if not the biggest reason why the Dallas Mavericks won. I mean, when you took a look at the box score, Luka Doncic had a really good game, ending the game with 29 points. He ended the game shooting 12 of 26 from the field, which equates to 46.2%. Three-point land, he wasn't good at all. He was 0 of 8. Kyrie Irving ended the game with 21 points. Kyrie Irving converted 10 of his 18 field goal attempts. That's 55.6%. As far as 3 points, Kyrie Irving was 1 of 6, which is 16.7% from three-point land. That wasn't great. But again, as long as the energy is being put out, then the Dallas Mavericks have a really good chance. And after game three, the debacle that Luka Doncic displayed, as far as crying, as far as whining to the refs, always bitching and complaining that he's not getting his calls. And in game three, man, it just seemed very, very evident. I feel like it really, really turned off a lot of people on Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic, basically, since he's entered the league, he's been like regarded as one of, if not the best player in the league. I mean, I said it in previous videos that like I was never really sold on Luka Doncic. Like, of course, he's an amazing talent. He has amazing skills. He's a really big point guard. The build, the footwork, the talent that he displays night in and night out. Of course, he's going to be on the upper echelon of NBA players in the league. But ever since he came into the league, the NBA media was comparing him to Larry Bird, was comparing him to Magic Johnson. They're comparing him to NBA greats. You're comparing him to NBA pioneers. And I just never really liked that. And it never really sat well with me. I was always on the side of, yeah, this guy obviously has a lot of talent. This guy has a lot of skills. When Luka came into the league, he was right away one of the better players in the league. But I always need to see somebody prove it first before we anoint him the best player, the second best player, the third best player in the league. And I just didn't like the talk around Luka Doncic when he didn't prove anything. Now, since then, he's had two Western Conference Finals appearances. The first one losing to Golden State in 5 games, the second one beating Minnesota in 5 games, and now he's in the actual NBA Finals. And whenever Luka is within himself, whenever Luka is not looking for excuses, whenever Luka is playing his game, and Luka's game is controlling the pace. Luka is one of the better players I've ever seen in my life, controlling the pace of the game, not being sped up, not slowing down when the defender is actually pressuring him. Luka, he knows how to get to his spots. He knows what's his bread and butter, and that's what separates him from a lot of players in the league. But game three, man, it was stuff that I've always seen in his career, him complaining, him bitching, him crying to the refs. But in game three, when you guys are down 2-0 and you guys are about to lose game three, so you guys are about to go down 3-0 and everybody's watching the NBA finals, and when you have NBA casual fans complaining about Luka's crying and bitching and complaining to the refs, that's when you know he needs to change. And I really felt that Luka really made it a point going into game four that he was going to focus in on himself. He was going to stay true to himself. And if there was a foul call, he was going to play through it. If there was a missed call, he was going to play through it. And that's something that Luka is going to have to learn. He's finally made it to the NBA Finals. And if he ends up losing, this is going to be an amazing, amazing teaching experience to him because now he's going to know what it takes to get back to the NBA Finals. But if he loses to the Boston Celtics, he's going to know what it takes to actually win in the NBA Finals. Obviously, I never played in the NBA, but when you hear these players give interviews and you hear them talking about how hard it is to win a championship, you need to look. The players always talk about what needs to fall in place in order to win a championship. And one of the bigger things that they talk about is luck. And within luck means health. And if the players are healthy and if you're lucky and you have certain breaks going your way, then you need to take advantage of it. And Luka at this point, it kind of before game four, because game four, he had a nice bounce back game. But before game four, I don't know if I want to say that it was looking like he was taking it for granted. I should preface that he has been playing through an injury. It's been like weird though, because since the beginning of the playoffs in the first round against the Clippers, like he looked bad. Like just the way he was moving up and down the court, it looked like he was moving very gingerly. And then the second round against OKC, it looked like he was a little better. And then the third round in the Western Conference Finals against the Minnesota Timberwolves, it was like up and down. There were some games where he looked okay, and then there were some games where it looked like game three against Clippers in the first round, where like he was just walking around super gingerly. So he's playing through some sort of knee injury. We just don't know how severe it is. We don't know what it is. So I do want to give him a little bit of slack, but you're Luka Doncic. You're, in my opinion, the second best player in the league behind Jokic. And you're a big reason why this team was able to get past Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals and get to the NBA Finals. And it looks like you're kind of pissing it away. Now, the Boston Celtics, they need to be careful. So they lost game 4, and I'm not super worried. I want Boston to win, even though I'm a Knicks fan. That's kind of like sacrilegious to say. The reason why I want Boston to win is because I don't think Luka is the player that everybody else thinks. I just gave you a 10-minute spiel about how everybody has him in high regards and comparing him to Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, the ultimate pioneers of this game. And I don't think Luka has proved anything to us that leads us to believe that he needs to be compared to those type of players. So, and on top of that, Boston has been through the ringer in the last 5, 6, 7 seasons. Prior to this NBA Finals, the Boston Celtics have been to the Eastern Conference Finals 6 of the past 8 seasons, and including this year, it's 7 out of the last 9 seasons. So you can 100% confidently say that Boston has paid their dues. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown specifically have paid their dues. Just the media just dissecting every single move, every single game that they've had in the playoffs ever since basically Jason Tatum was a rookie. When Jason Tatum was a rookie, that was Jaylen Brown's second year. So they've been attached to the hip for God knows how long. And it looks like they're finally going to break through. But Boston needs to be careful. Game 4 in Dallas, being up 3-0. I mean, granted, human nature was bound to kick in. They're up 3-0. And human nature is just like, okay, if we lose tonight's game, we're going to go back to Boston. We're going to go back home. We have an opportunity to close out the series at home in front of our home crowd. So can I blame them? I don't want to say that they didn't try because I don't think that's the case. But after the first quarter, after maybe like halfway through the second quarter, it was obvious that they just did not have it. And they kind of just like took their foot off the gas a little bit. They realized they didn't have it, and instead of forcing it, they kind of realized that they should just like wait until game 5 going back to Boston, which will be tomorrow, and just really give it their all and close it out in 5. I mean, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum for game 4, like it was an atrocity. Jason Tatum finished the game with 15 points, converting 4 of 10 from the field, converting one of his 4 3-point attempts, which is 25%. Jaylen Brown finished the game with 10 points, 3 of 12 from the field, which is 25%, 1 of 5 from three-point land, which is 20%. Jrue Holiday ended the game with 10 points, 4 of 10 from the field, 2 of 4 from three-point land. Like it just wasn't a good game. All around, it just wasn't a good game. And I just keep harping on that Boston Celtics, they need to be careful. They need to be careful and make sure that this isn't just an ongoing thing. Even if game 5, Dallas seems like they're not letting go of the rope and they're actually in contention to elongate the series. Boston, they really need to put their foot on the Dallas Mavericks' neck and let them know that it was a one-time thing and it's not going to happen. But going back to game 4, man, like look at these stats just from the first half. This is where I keep harping on the energy level and the intentionality that Dallas Mavericks came out with. It was very evident in the first half. So in the first half, as far as the points, Dallas Mavericks scored 61 points and the Boston Celtics scored 35. As far as field goal percentage, Dallas Mavericks ended the first half at 52.3%. So they basically hit half of all of their shots that they took in the first half. The Boston Celtics ended up with 29.7% from field goal in the first half. Rebounds. Dallas was all over the boards in the first half. Dallas Mavericks had 29 rebounds in the first half, as to Boston's 13 rebounds in the first half. In the paint points, Dallas Mavericks had 34 points in the paint, to Boston Celtics 12 points in the paint. So it looks like the Dallas Mavericks really made it a point for game 4 to really attack the paint, really put the onus on the big man, primarily Al Horford. Jason Kidd and the rest of the coaching staff, kudos to them for really making it a point to attack the rim, make the easy game for yourselves. Don't start off shooting three-pointers. Don't start off shooting mid-range shots. Make the game as easy as possible. Attack the paint, see the ball go through the net, build your confidence, and then step out behind the three-point line. As far as second chance points, I mean, the Dallas Mavericks in the first half had 10. That doesn't seem like a big number, but when you compare it to Boston Celtics second chance points in the first half, which is 0, that's where you see the difference. The second chance points, that might be the biggest stat right there to show you the energy level, the intentionality level that I keep referring to the Dallas Mavericks in game 4. So those numbers in their first half, that kind of breaks down the game right then and there. It just shows you that Dallas Mavericks, they came out gunning, they came out not wanting to be embarrassed, not wanting to get swept, and they ended up winning the game. Now, game 5 is going to be tomorrow in Boston, and in my opinion, I think Boston is going to close it out. Um, I really, really don't see Boston letting go of the rope. I really think Boston is going to come out really swinging and looking to close out the series, which they really should, because like I just said, if they lose game five in Boston and they have to go to Dallas to game six, all of the momentum will be with Dallas and all of the pressure will be put on Boston. And something else that I should add is if Dallas is somehow able to extend the series, then you're leaving the door open for anything to happen. And what do I mean by anything to happen? Primarily, I'm talking about injuries. If you remember last season in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals against the Miami Heat, the Boston Celtics and Jason Tatum, on the first play of the game, Jason Tatum rolled his ankle pretty bad. He ended up playing the rest of the game, but you can tell that he wasn't the same. And then when you extend the series for as long as you possible, you leave the door open for anything to happen. Injuries, people not feeling well, a la Jordan's flu game, or really it's the food poisoning game. Like you just leave the door open for anything possible, and the Boston Celtics should absolutely 100% positively not leave anything to chance. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they have the opportunity to cement their legacy, and if they are able to win this championship, all the talk of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as far as who's the best player, who's the number one option, who's the number two option, who's the better player between the two, like all of that talk is going to be nipped in the bud. If you're able to win a championship, the way the media, the way the fans talk about your name is completely different. I could point to you so many examples. Look at how people talk about Charles Barkley. Look how people talk about Allen Iverson. Look how people talk about Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter. Now compare Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter to Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant is automatically on another level than those players because one, he has the championships, obviously. Two, the skill level is on another level, obviously. But that championship is what cements your legacy. That championship is a separator between you and your peers. So Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, if they're able to win this championship and if they're able to win it tomorrow in Boston, you're immediately going to feel the difference the following day on First Take, on FS1, Colin Cowherd. Everybody's going to be talking about the tandem of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum absolutely differently. And I'll be one of them because I was under the assumption that after the fourth time of them going to the Eastern Conference Finals and not being able to pull through, I was under the assumption that they needed to break it up. But I've kind of fell within the bandwagon of the rest of the NBA fans. I was a little too eager to jump on their necks. Like I needed to take a step back and realize that at the time, their fourth Eastern Conference Finals appearance, they were probably what, like early to mid 20s. And most of the time, really, when you really make that breakthrough is like mid to late 20s. And that's exactly what Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are right now. They're in their, I think they're like 26, 27, 28, somewhere around there. And that is, if you look at traditional NBA history, that is where the players usually have the breakthrough, a la Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan won his first championship, I believe, at 27. And then we obviously know the rest of his history. There's so many players that you can point to in NBA history where they were trying to get through, and they weren't able to. But then when they had that breakthrough, they were able to win the championship. So Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, man, I really do hope that they're actually able to break through tomorrow night, win the championship in front of their home crowd. And then when they win the championship, man, besides the talk around their legacy, now the talk is going to be about Boston Celtics repeating. How good is this Boston Celtics team? Where do you rank them within the lore of the Celtics history? Where do you rank them within NBA history and NBA champions? There's going to be a lot of different types of talk around Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and the Boston Celtics. And I'm definitely going to be one of the ones contributing to those type of conversations. But that's it for today's episode, guys. And before I wrap up today's episode, I want to remind you guys that if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening to this on any of the podcast streaming platforms, remember to rate, remember to review, and remember to subscribe to the Time Flies podcast. That'll be a really big help. But until next time, I'll check you guys out in the next episode. I'm out, baby.